Great. So yes, I'm very happy to be here. It's quite a lineup, and the little postdoc from this, the center is also here. So I wanted to talk a little bit about worldviews and make the pluralistic side of things a little stronger, so to speak. And I think there are like some recent developments that might force us to focus that side as well. And it's kind of a remix of other articles. So if you want to read more, I can send them. And if you fall asleep in a moment, that's fine. Just give me 30 seconds to say the main message. Like if you forget everything else, it's okay. But one thing is like epistemic diversity is something quite desirable, and Leo Apostel stresses this as well. And there's one worry that we have, so to speak, one worldview using a trick to get more dominant than it should be, maybe. And that's that AI tools might to homogenize us epistemically in a problematic way. And of course, this is just a worry. I'm not saying this is necessary. We can design it in a better way, but we can also do it in a wrong way, so to speak. That's the key argument. So now you can sleep. And if you stick to me, it's still worth it. So let me start with Leo Apostel a little bit. We heard a lot. We had this metaphor of map already. Let me stress one more thing that he said in this lovely book and the lovely online edition. You can look up. The pages are from the book, but the online edition is searchable. So is that he said that these worldviews are always fragile. And I think this is like a very nice element because it bakes in a heuristic, and it bakes in a heuristic that we heard already. We heard my worldview is open. I'm open to hear something. I'm open to revise it. So we have baked in a heuristic and an epistemic virtue, namely humility. It's something completely different than saying I have the right theory, period. It's known that it can change over time. And he even says that we don't want to strive for one unique worldview. Of course, he also says in kind of we strive to one because we want to integrate different views. But there's like this little tension between pluralism and integration. But and this tension is stressed also elsewhere, right? It's always the dialectic. We also heard that scientism, anthropocentrism, different views clash together. There's some tension. And for me, important it is that that he talks about that these different systems can converse and talk with each other. This is, so to speak, the one main goal of this integrative approach. And of course, this is also said with a historical background and one of fragmentation. We also heard that Apostel stressed that we have this pluralization of culture, individualization, and that's a problem, of course. Not everybody can have their own worldview. Maybe the cardinal sin of the post-structuralistic world to take everything on the same level. But I argue that this historic context also can change, and it might be the moment where it changed. So maybe our current times make it relevant to focus the pluralistic half a little more. And what's the main worry? Well, it's the AI homogenization. And what do I mean by that? Don't take me to be a doomer. AI has good application as well, but today I stress on the problematic part. So just to make this disclaimer. And we already see it, for instance, by this prevailing narrative that search is dead. So Google search results might feel worse than they used to be. There are several reasons for it. For instance, SEO optimization, right? Whenever you look for a recipe, you get a top 10 list, and you get a top 10 list where the recipe is on the very bottom. So you spend more time on things, stuff like that. So search has problems. And one particular problems are these AI summary, right? And this is a naive query. What is the best ethical theory? I mean, those studying philosophy would say, okay, that's nothing a one-liner should solve. But the new AI summary offers us a one-liner. It says like utilitarianism, that's the best theory, period. And of course, we know more. We would not stop our inquiry there, but it's something somebody might find emphasizing to just stop there now. And that's different from the old way, right? Where you had at least Google search page 1 existed. Google search page 2 is already something. You can hide a dead body there, but at least we looked at page 1. So there are some different sources we take into account. And in the time of chatbots, this gets stronger. I mean, there's this lovely joke. If we would have put Socrates to reinforcement learning of AI models, what would be like the answer that we get to any query? Well, we would get always, I don't know, because that's the only answer that Socrates would give positive feedback for. But we don't ask Socrates to fine-tune these models. We ask ordinary people, right? Sometimes people from the global south, other questions there. But in principle, we ask ordinary people and they want actionable results. You aren't happy if you get a I don't know as a reply. You are happier if you get something where you can do something. And if we as society don't know, then the answer is probably bullshit, right? A hallucination might be a nicer reply in a reinforcement learning setting than I don't know. So these chatbots get positive rewards for hallucinating. This is, I will now talk a little bit more about like educational context, because this is where homogenization really can take place, right? Because we are in the lucky position that we all went through the pre-AI world, but those who are only learning now had like, first they had like this pandemic where more recording got acceptable, where more distance got acceptable. It's less about the human-to-human interaction, so to speak. And this gets even worse now with like tutoring systems that are fine-tailored. And in particular, I said this might make a particular worldview maybe connected to the Silicon Valley more dominant for undesirable reasons, because it's not only for epistemic reasons, it's like for economic reasons that these models might kill off is maybe too much, but might harm plurality. Because we already see that there are like only a few foundational models that really push the boundary, and the narratives changed. Like 8 years ago, it was like learn to train a neural model in order to have a classification algorithm. We wanted to look into these things. And nowadays it's more like if you have a business model where you use the API of one of the big models, that's something that can work. So, and even like, I mean, at universities, different German universities already gave like ChatGPT access to their students. And of course, there are good reasons for that, but it's also a dangerous thing. And the economics reasons are that this is like a winner takes it all economy. Like in contrast to a bakery, it's not like it doesn't scale linearly. If you have the leading model, you have more data, and the cost to get new customers, so to speak, goes to zero. If you, of course, these data centers are a lot of money, but we are talking about billions of users. So to add another user, so to speak, is the marginal costs are zero. So in a winner takes it all, it's just natural that we have like a winner, we have a few very dominant firms and not a plurality of different models. So it's kind of a trick. The plurality only is in front of the foundation models. We can all have our interfaces, but in the end, a few models with their own biases, with their own worldview, so to speak, get dominant. And to solve this issue, to have like a kind of positive upshot, you can also look at Apostel again when he said that like that free thought is not a state but an activity, that we need to have to foster like ongoing inquiry, ongoing looking into issues. So we need to foster intellectual virtues, other people would say. And this is like quite a contrast to an output-oriented worldview where it's just about the results, right? We used to equate that our students write a good essay where they learn something because it used to be a good proxy, but it was never about the essay anyway. It was about that person to develop some intellectual capabilities. Okay. To stress this point a little more, let me just say there's like value in niche practices. It's good to embed in something that's outdated, like the calculator. We can calculate now, it's fine, but it's still nice for children to calculate things. They might develop an idea of an algorithm. The Rubik's Cube never had use. It was never outputly justified, but it's a lovely starting point for a lot of mathematics. Restricting ourselves, like for instance, high-level coding languages also got rid about a lot of low-level programming skills. And that's fine. I don't say go back to assembly, but I'm saying there's some value in restricting yourself. Like the last roller coaster tycoon, the last assembly written game, or a huge culture about low poly models, things looking like they used to look on the PlayStation 1. And back then it was a necessity, and now it's a restriction of ourselves, and it's a own mode of creating an aesthetic environment. So there is, of course, a tension between diversity and homogenization, and just a few words on math, because this is where I'm actually coming from. Like, it's a ridiculously classified field. We have like 5,000 subdisciplines in mathematics. And we have like different traditions as well. Like graph theory in Hamburg, where I studied math, is a pure field of mathematics. And everywhere else, it's an applied field. But this meant that the mathematicians there asked different questions. And in Germany, we used to have the tradition that professors teach the introductory courses, and they teach it in a way as they pleased. So they had different areas of focus. And this created like a lot of different approaches. And this is like, there is a benefit from it, because sometimes this is why we do foundational research, because you never know what gets application in the long run. I mean, intuitionistic logic was dead for some good reason, so to speak, but it wasn't really dead. There were still people doing it, and then it blew up again with the computer age and nowadays with homotopy type theory and things. So it's good that we haven't really killed it. We didn't focus all our attention there, but we still focused some attention there. So it's an invisible market argument, so to speak, in that case. Of course, it's a trade-off. Pluralism is in some sense inefficient. Of course, it's in some sense local, but we would say it's like intrinsically motivated. Now these AI chatbots are even more problematic than other cases, because we might lay off what's the most relevant thing, namely the critical judgments, the argumentative analysis to those tools. And that's even worse than the calculator, right? It's another practice of humanity that we could cognitively offload, but it's maybe the meta activities, and these are exactly those that we shouldn't offload. Looking at the time, should I go to Q&A now because we're already late, or have I 5 more minutes? Yeah, okay. Okay, then. And I think one way of phrasing what Leo Apostel might have had in mind in these integrating worldviews is more a meta level as well. I mean, there are other approaches that are fine too, but it's maybe something as a virtual theoretic context of engagement and stressing epistemic dimensions. And in this case, like, it would be something like AI literacy for the problem that I'm worried about, but it's more about general communicatory skills. And the case of AI literacy is I think, a good one for a value, because it fosters agenthood in our modern society. It helps critical thinking, problem solving, and it makes you like an active citizen. In Germany, we have this part that we foster STEM education, not only for STEM purposes, but for political purposes, because only somebody understanding STEM can participate in deliberative democracy. So AI literacy is part of flourishing of the good life of lifelong learning. It's like the smaller conclusion. Leo Apostel inspired one for the AI homogenization problem, but since this is an issue of broader discussion, let me just give you like a tiny other quote from Leo Apostel. He was always scientist in the sense of, he said at many places, we need to respect the facts. Whenever a worldview contradicts science, we have a problem. Like the first worldview, as mentioned in the previous connection, if it has a problem with biology, there's something to be done. But he was also careful in his examples. He picked cases where the error was, so to speak, bad for discussion culture. So when he talked about these doubtful biological theories and social Darwinism, I think this is stressed because these worldviews are not integrative, but like conquerative. They want to get rid about other views and just put in their view on that place. It's not integration, assimilation. So I think in a bigger story, one could say that there's like a meta-narrative in Leo Apostel talking about a thin layer of alignment in values of discussion. So the anti-vaxxer case is fine as long as we discuss. The problem isn't the disagreement on the matter of fact. This can be solved, but the problem is there in the moment we stop reasonable inquiry, reasonable discussion, because I'm just a Republican, this is how I'm born, and I'm just a Democrat, this is how I'm born. This is a problem, right? It's not about the statistical analysis there you can get. The evolution takes place, so to speak. And now the very final sentence is, I crossed out Hinges because initially I wanted to talk more about Wittgenstein, but then it got too much. Let me say there is a benefit in Leo Apostel over Wittgenstein, even if Wittgenstein is very dear to my heart, that Wittgenstein's idea of this views and hinges is very descriptive. It's more like a burden that we cannot really get off. And that's a good thing because it makes you, it's also it fosters humility. But Leo Apostel has this reflective element. He says that like even though worldviews grow organically and historically, one can articulate them, understand them, and develop them. And I think this view is nicer than just saying, and now let me come back to the AI case, these tools are inherently bad because they will always be biased. They will always have hinges. There are always worldviews baked in, because Leo Apostel allows to say, yes, they always have that, but there's no reason why we cannot work on those things. I think it's a more productive theory of worldviews. And this is a nice thing, I think. So in that spirit, thank you, and let's keep building bridges. Yeah.